Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Today we're going to be doing a lot more of that chroming, and for all these lures, because these are lures that I want to take on my next fishing trip. None of them have paint jobs, and I want to start their paint jobs with a base coat of really reflective chrome, and that's what that was. And I'll show you a little more about that in a little bit. For now, let's get these guys prepped and get right to putting chrome on them. All right, I've got my little booth ready to go. I got some fresh gloves on. I got a smock or a shop apron on so I don't ruin my shirt, because I've been ruining shirts for over 60 years and I'm pretty damn good at it. I've got all the stuff set up. It doesn't look like much, but I've got my little duplex gun that I made myself, and I made a video of how to do this. Super easy, super cheap. First, I'm just going to show you the steps, and then we'll go ahead and start putting the chrome on. And first, we'll start out with one of these black lures, and I made these just a couple of videos ago. These are the copies of the Daiwa crosswake lures that I made. A lot of you guys got a little offended that I copied a lure, but in the end, I make them my own. So we'll start with this one because the black is a good background to be able to see what I'm doing. First of all, the lure has to have a clear coat on it that's as perfectly glossy as you can possibly make it. This lure has some texture on it, so the texture is going to come through a little bit. So the process is simple. First, some distilled water, and I want you to take a quick look at the lure and how that water just sort of beads on there. That's what you don't want. So the next step is actually to get rid of the beading so the water doesn't end up making everything blotchy. And what I do is I spray a little of this stuff on. It's actually just an organic surfactant and super safe. It can go straight down the sink drain without an issue. So I'll spray it on. I'll let it sit there for a little bit, make sure it's fully coated, and then I'll rinse it off again with the water, the deionized water. And I think you're going to be able to see how it doesn't bead at all now. The water just lays on there nice and evenly all the way across. And if it starts to bead again, that means the treatment wasn't good enough. So we're going to hit it again and we'll let it kind of sit. And you basically have to do this until it doesn't bead anymore. All right, once it's not beading anymore, I stick it down in this container with a fluid in it that's what's called a tinning agent or a tin activator. So what that does is allows the silver plating to actually stick to the plastic that the lure is made out of, and that clear coat. And you're gonna have to put up with a little bit of background sound because I've got the air conditioning on, and I'm gonna have the evacuator fan going in the paint booth as well. So it's gonna be a little loud. So the last step is to take it out of the tinning agent and rinse that off, the excess tinning agent, and then you start putting the chrome down. This is actually silver plating. And this stuff is like magic. I love this. I just would do this to every doggone lure I ever make. And putting transparent paint over this is bloody magical, man. I love doing that. It gives the lure just like that miraculous looking glow from the inside. Anyway, we've got 5 more to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put on a respirator just to be safe, because that extractor doesn't get it all. And I'll put a little background music on and we'll do these one after the other. The next one is another version of the crosswake. This one's clear and hollow, and I cast it on my rotocasting machine. I really love the way these things come out. I added BBs to it afterwards. Here's another solid one, this one in white. The next lure is my Hyper Jerk. This is a lure I designed to have extreme action, both when you're actually jerking it like a jerk lure and when you're retrieving it. It has a big swim action. Let's do another one. This version has a bigger dive bit. All right, well, this did not turn out really as expected, right? It's not very good, it's blotchy, it's dark on the top, but this is a good teaching moment here. It's not the end of the world. Actually, a lot of times, I'll just leave it like this and design my paint job to incorporate the flaws. This one's pretty bad, but you can just recover from this pretty easily. You take a little bit of denatured alcohol. I'm gonna use a lint-free rag just to keep from getting a bunch of lint on this thing. But let me see if I can get the camera to capture this. But it will rub right off. You can see the alcohol won't mess with your clear coat, so you can actually go directly to giving this thing another shot of silver. And we'll do that in just a second. All right, well, I can't say it's perfect. It's not. It's just slightly better. A little speckled, a little bit blotchy, but still we can work this out with some paint. Anyway, it's a perfect opportunity to show you what you can do, even if it doesn't come out great. All right, we're down to the last one. It's another crosswalk, painted black. Let's see how this one comes out. All right, well, I had to go back in the house and get this shirt into the dryer. I got soaked. It's the next day. I did put a spray-on clear coat on these guys just to protect them, but I waited a little too long, and I think my chemicals are a little old because they're almost a year old. And one of them went kind of dark on me, but otherwise, they're pretty nice. You saw what they look like. I'm going to go ahead and lay in 2 or 3 different paint jobs on these guys. I'm going to do it on camera. But before I do that, I know a lot of you guys tuned into this just to find out about the chrome plating or the silver plating, which is what it really is. So I'm going to go ahead and first give you a link here for the last video I did that actually talks about the cost. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description a list of items, the minimal items to buy, because you can definitely spend thousands if you want to, but you can get into this for a few $100. When I first started doing this stuff, the cost of the chemicals was right around $80, $90, less than $100. Now it's getting close to $300. So it's a little bit pricey, but if you don't have a compressor and you don't want to make one of these guns, you can do the dip method. And that's a video you probably should watch. It also has the difference in the cost between the spray method and the dip method. The dip method is super simple. You can do it at your kitchen sink. I don't recommend it, but you can do it really easily. It doesn't take anything special. And if you've never done it, that's the best place to start. So let me tell you the paint jobs I want to do. First, my favorite paint job, which is this chrome fading to gold, fading to green, and then black. This is the most productive paint job I've ever used, saltwater or freshwater. Then I want to do one that has a transparent copper top fading down into a light green. And then I want to do one that's a sort of a flaming reflective clown color. And I want to take another stab at this color scheme, which is super simple. Green on top, silver, and that blue dot up by the gills. Let's see what else I come up with. Let me set up the camera and we'll get started. All right, we're going to start off with one of the crosswake ones. I'm going to go ahead and paint this one in my favorite paint scheme, which is gold chrome with a green top. We'll start off with a transparent orange, which gives you a nice gold, and a transparent green. And it should be obvious that anytime you paint over chrome, you gotta use transparent paints. Otherwise, you're just covering the chrome. And my favorite transparent paints are by Badger Airbrush Paints. Their paints spray really nicely, but they're also truly transparent. So we're gonna start off with a gold line right through the eye, down the middle, and a little bit on the gill. Look at that reflection. That's awesome. I think that gold starts to show up. Camera never really gives it justice, but that looks amazing. All right, now we're gonna go with a little bit of green, and I'm not gonna worry about the top too much because I'm gonna go with a darker green up there. But I want this to sort of overspray downward, and the gold and the green will kind of intermix, and you'll get it with a sort of a gold green kind of color. All right, that looks really good. Again, the camera is not picking it up great. But now I'm going to use a Createx transparent green. I want a more opaque look at the very top. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to put a thin black line on the top. Definitely don't want to cover up all the green, but I do want to put like transparent black on top. And for that, I'm going to use Createx again. I do want to put a strike eye right back here. All right, that's going to look really nice. All right, here's our hyper jerkbait with the small bib. This one came out pretty nice. It's a little dark, but I kind of like that almost black pearl kind of look. I'm going to start this one with some transparent green on the sides, and then we'll move on to the copper top. Now I'm going to put the transparent copper, but I'm doing it over a scale pattern. And I want to bring the scales down about halfway down the green part. Now this is going to sound a little crazy, but I'm going to use some iridescent purple coming from the eye just back about half the length of the body. And then just a little bit of black, the same transparent black I used for the stripe on top. And I'm going to use the same black and put some random speckling by the eye and just back from the eye. And that looks pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and call that done. The only additional thing will be a little red on the bottom. All right, now the problem child here. Here's the muddled one. And it actually looks much worse on camera than it does right here. What I'm going to do is something a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and paint this whole thing one color of transparent blue, and then we'll work our way out of that problem. So what I was hoping is that it'll bring out the muddled, sort of uneven paint, and then we can do something with that later on. All right, that looks pretty good. We still have quite a bit of reflective quality in it. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of a blue-green going from the bottom up. All right, now I'm going to use a little bit of iridescent blue, and I'm going to put that on the side there just to make up for the lack of reflection in this kind of muddled finish. And I got this stuff out of my Let's Resin paint set. It's a massive set, and the price is unbelievable on this thing. I put it on my Amazon store because it's such a bargain. And you get iridescent and opaque and fluorescent, and just a great paint set for the price anyway. All right, not sure the camera's gonna pick that up, but it looks pretty cool. Now we're gonna do a little bit of a breakup of the colors and have the same speckle pattern, but in iridescent yellow. It's starting to look pretty cool. And I want some of that iridescent yellow on the belly. And we'll do the same thing with the top and give it that half black stripe. All right, I'm liking it. And while the reflective surface underneath isn't playing as big a role, it's still in there. And you can still notice that it sort of has a slight candy apple finish. All right, on this one, I'm going to do a copper top paint job, but I want to add a little bit of gold in the gill area. Now I'm going to do the copper without any scale effect because I just want the shine of the copper. I don't think the camera does it justice, but man, I like that. This is moss green. It's a real dark green, and I want to do a little bit of green on top, right at the very top, and I want to speckle it with the green on the side. All right, that's got it. All right, I'm loving this paint job. I also put some gold on the bottom too. All right, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a clown color with the silver in the background. So I'm gonna do yellow on top and on the bottom from about the beginning of the gills back, and then the head will be red. All right, so the only transparent red I have is the Createx one. So what I'll have to do, the idea is to shoot straight at the mouth and then have the red on the head. Kind of like that. That looks pretty cool. And while I got the red in the gun, let's get the other one. All right, so this one, we're gonna try to get this copied. I don't want to do a black background on the scale, so I'm just gonna go with the silver background. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna put a little bit of the moss green on top just to darken it just a little. All right, that looks pretty cool. And I have just got to have a little bit of gold just below the green. Just a little bit of subtle coloring. That looks really awesome. And now for the blue dot. This is a little bit scary because it's all freehand. All right, that looks really good. And on the original, the belly is white, but I'm going with the chrome. I will put a little bit of red on the inside of the mouth. The original doesn't have it, but I just gotta have it. All right, eat your heart out, Daiwa. This is something else. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. We made the most of what we got from our chroming process, and all I've got to do now is put some eyes on it. I'm gonna let it dry a little more before I start handling them, and I'll put a mid coat on there to cover the paint and act as a preparation layer for the UV resin. But stick around, because when I pull these things out of the UV chamber, I'm gonna take some nice photographs and I'll leave you with a nice slideshow. And remember, if you haven't subscribed, certainly subscribe. If you've got some good ideas for a lure you'd like to see made, let me know. I'm getting a lot of those and I'm noting them down. So maybe we can pursue those builds coming up. In the meantime, maybe next time we'll be fishing with these guys. And near the end of the slideshow, you're gonna see a video recommended for you. That's what you should watch if you are interested in this silver plating stuff.
I've got them all clear coated with UV Cure epoxy resin, and I put them all in the curing box, and everything seemed to be going pretty good until this. I had closed this thing and I was across the room and I heard a clack, and when I came over here to look, this guy had actually fallen out of his holder and landed in the bottom of the curing box. pulled it out of there. It was pretty badly damaged, and the finish was. The UV resin was already partially cured, so I had to cure it the rest of the way, sand it down, repaint. Anyway, I'm in the middle of trying to recoup it. It's still a little rough, but I just wanted to show you what kind of things can happen, and not everything turns out perfect. This one is unfortunate because this is the only hollow one that I actually have. Let's take a look at the slideshow of all the other ones.